So, hi everyone, a very good evening to you all. A very warm welcome to our platform, WellCure, where we regularly host events and workshops related to natural healing, natural living. You can check out our website, www.wellcure.com, if this kind of living, eating is something that interests you. We have a repository of healthy recipes, natural living blogs, and we regularly do conduct different workshops. If in case this interests you, then definitely do give our website a look. A few instructions before we go ahead and begin the meeting. My name is Ishita and I'm from the WellCure team and I will be hosting the session for today. So in case you have anything to communicate to me, you can use the chat box. Also, please stay on mute. Your microphones have been disabled for the session so that we have a smooth running session. Uh, we are keeping the chat box open. So in case you have anything to communicate, any comments, any questions, please use the chat. And after the session gets over, we will be taking up questions. We would also request and like if you stay, keep your questions relevant to the topic that's being covered in the workshop and actively take down notes so that you don't miss out anything important. And please keep your videos off to avoid distractions. To take you through the program, this workshop details. So we have a couple of live sessions. Today being the first one. Next one is the after tomorrow. That's 24th. Again, the timing is same, 5 to 6 p.m. The third one will be on 25th. On 26th, there's going to be a WhatsApp group support. And on the 1st of June, there's going to be the fourth live session, which is again, the time for all live sessions remain the same. That's between 5 to 6. And there's some really interesting topics which are going to be covered. And we hope that you participate and you make it to every live session. So the recordings, all the sessions will be recording. You will be provided access to the recordings as well. And with respect to today's session and the coming sessions, please log in with only one device and make sure that you have logged in with the name that you have registered. If not, please rename your devices. So I would quickly like to introduce you all to Priyanka Jain, who is the program expert with us on board for the gut health workshop. She's a plant-based nutrition and lifestyle coach. She's also a fitness enthusiast. She believes in the concept of refuse, reuse, reduce, recycle. And she has a YouTube channel which is called Hygiene and You, and she aims to reach the masses and advocate the importance of clean eating, natural lifestyle, women's health, and how to live a life which is smart, sustainable. She also has her own brand, which is called Soch Green, which provides a complete product landscape of eco-friendly period products. So we're really excited to have this session and learn from you, Priyanka. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Yes. A very warm welcome to you as well. And I would like to hand over the session to you now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll just get my screen. Hi, everyone. I hope you're all as charged up as I am. And if you're not, then you should be after 10 days. So just follow us along. Today's session, we'll quickly talk about gut health. What is it and what did we do to, ruin it so much? How can we fix it? And we'll also be covering food combining because it's a very important tool to improve our health, and a lot of us don't even know that it exists and we just eat anything at any time. Another thing we'll be covering today is how to improve digestibility of raw foods, because often I hear people complaining about, oh, fruits don't suit me or certain vegetables don't suit me. So we'll also talk about how to improve digestibility of those foods. Okay, so let's get started. Do we have everyone we are expecting? Can I start the presentation?
We can. We still have a few people who are joining in, but most of them are here, so we can start.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. So when we talk about what exactly is the gut, and if you look up the dictionary meaning, it will probably say it's the GI tract or it's the digestive system. Some would just say it's the stomach and the intestines. But overall, it is our digestive system, and which starts from the mouth and goes all the way up to the anus. And we've all studied digestive system in school, but I'll just quickly give a quick reminder on. So when we eat something, the digestion starts in the mouth when we chew the food. And again, these days, a lot of us, we are so busy, we don't have time to eat food. So we don't really chew it properly. We just gulp it down, missing certain parts of digestion. It goes through to the stomach where a lot of digestive juices are secreted and the food gets digested further. Then it goes through the intestines, from small intestines to the large intestines. During this process, a lot of um, juices are secreted from our liver or the gallbladder, and they help in digestion and breaking down the food into simpler molecules. And from that, nutrients are absorbed and released into the blood, and that's how they reach our entire body. And in the large intestine, finally, all the liquids are secreted, and whatever solids are remained, they are removed from the body as solids. So that's what we understand the digestive system as. But there is a confusion between the gut and the digestive system. Sometimes it's taken as the same thing, but is it really? When my stomach hurts, I say my stomach hurts. I don't say my gut hurts. But if I have something important, some important event is coming up, or I'm expecting something, I say I have a gut feeling about it. So intuitively, humans have actually always known that stomach or the organ stomach is different. And when I'm talking about the gut is different, we have feelings related to it. So we even feel those butterflies in our stomach, even we are on a roller coaster ride or we are on a date. All these different kinds of events do generate some feelings in our stomach. So sorry, I'm just getting these notifications. Can't see my screen. Yeah, so recently, and by recently, I mean in the last about 20 to 30 years, there have been a lot of research in the medical community that led us to the conclusions that there's a lot of bacteria in our gut. If you think about it, there's bacteria pretty much everywhere, in the air around us, in water, and on our body, on our skins, ears, nose, literally everywhere. But there's a huge amount of bacteria in our gut. And if we count the number of bacteria, there's over trillions of bacteria in our body. And if we compare our how many cells we have in our body, then we have actually more bacteria than we have human cells. So we are actually more bacteria than we are humans. And it is a combination of good and bad bacteria, and we need them both, but we need them in a healthy ratio. Here's a fun fact, which I just briefly mentioned. So if we don't consider our blood cells, because obviously blood is a fluid going through the body, if we don't consider our blood cells, then only 10% of our entire body is human and the rest is bacteria. And we have 1,000 bacteria species, which is over 7 million genes. So 360 bacteria genes for every human gene that we have. I'm just sharing this fact to let you know the importance of bacteria in our body. So we are always trying to fix our human cells, and if we keep neglecting those bacteria, then we will definitely face health problems. So majority of our immune cells of our body are actually placed in the gut. And endocrine cells, again, majority of the endocrine cells in the gut. So if you consider all the endocrine glands like your thyroid or adrenal glands or the pituitary gland, and you put them all together into one big lump, and you put all the endocrine cells that are actually there in the gut, then these cells will actually take more weightage. So that just tells us that, for all hormonal issues, our gut can also be responsible. Sometimes people say, oh, I have thyroid-like symptoms, or I have PCOS kind of symptoms, but when I go for a test, check my blood reports, or I go for my ultrasound, I don't see anything. But I have those symptoms and my doctor's given me those medications, but I don't understand. So it's because of this that, all these endocrine cells that are in your gut, they obviously don't get covered when you're testing your thyroid or your ovaries. So that's one of the reasons. And again, because majority of the immune cells are in the gut, our immunity also greatly relies on our gut health. Then our gut also has its own nervous system, which is called the ENS, enteric nervous system, which is also known as the second brain. And that's why, when I said we have a gut feeling about something, or you can say the sixth sense. So where is it coming from? So it's almost as important as our brain. And the fourth most important thing that is there in our gut is the serotonin. Over 90% is produced in our gut, and that is responsible for a lot of mental health disorders, and even something as simple as anxiety these days, especially with corona. In the last 1 year, anxiety has become very common. Almost every other person has stress now. And so this is a hormone, it's a chemical that's released during stress. And if we have too much stress, then we need a lot more of serotonin. And you would know that a lot of the um, depression medications contain that as well. So again, for mental health disorders as well, a healthy gut is very important. So the gut and the brain, they have sort of a wired communication. And anything that happens in the gut, it sells a signal to the brain, and the brain processes it and sends the signal back to the gut. And I can't really say which happens first. It probably depends on the kind of event. So if you're seeing something, so your senses will definitely send that message first to the brain, and then the brain processes it and it sends the signal to your gut. And that's why, sometimes you have important exams maybe, or some meeting or something like that, people get diarrhea, or they feel like they get nausea. So that's the reason that, the brain got a message about some event happening, and it sent that signal to the gut. And because of these events, it really depends on what kind of emotions it created, whether you got angry, or whether you were sad, or you were fearful about something. The stomach and the intestines, they actually start working in a different way. So sometimes that stomach is literally, trying to turn upside down, and that's when you get nausea. And otherwise, your large intestine starts to work more because of that emotion, and people can get diarrhea. So these are just some examples, and only in extreme cases we feel these things, but otherwise this is happening in our body 24/7. And so I gave an example of eyes sending the signal, but if we take it the other way around, that I've eaten something, so now the gut is processing it, it's going to send signals about that to the brain. So basically, whatever decisions we are making in our life today and we'll be making in the future actually depends on what kind of food we were eating. So, well, I can't speak for others, but since I turned vegan, I actually became a much calmer person, and I won't get angry on anything. I won't get frustrated about things. So that's a major difference I noticed. And even my husband, like both of us, he turned vegan a few months after I did, but now it's been 3 years, and we can see a huge difference. Changing your food habits can make to your decision making skills, and to you as a person, to how you react to things. Okay, so because it's like a communication, but gut is also mirroring what is happening in the brain. So basically, if the brain was not happy about something, then it's not that the gut will go against the brain and say, no, I am happy with this, this is a good situation. It doesn't work like that. They are sort of synchronized with each other. Okay, so we would say why, there's so much hype about this whole gut health now. And my grandmother never, thought about gut health, and she never did anything to improve her gut health, and why are we in this situation today that we have to do it? First simple answer to this is because they were already doing everything that was good for the gut. And I remember, again, for myself, I'm speaking for myself as a kid, whatever my grandmom was doing, I used to think, oh, she's so outdated. She doesn't know the latest stuff. I've learned these things in school, or I saw this TV and I saw somebody in those Western countries. I was watching some English series and I've learned something cooler than what she knows. She doesn't know. So I always did not really follow her. And now when I think about those things, those are the things that I'm trying to, incorporate in my life today. So they used to walk to places, and we are taking cars everywhere, sitting in air-conditioned car because there's too much pollution now because I'm driving the car. Then they literally had everything homemade, and the thing is that at that time they used to make pickles, a lot of it, because unlike today, all the vegetables were not available throughout the year. And to preserve their vegetables, they used to make pickles, not because they thought it's a probiotic and it's going to help their gut, but they just had to do it so that they can eat. Or at certain point, maybe they had abundance of mangoes, so they made raw mango pickles, so that they can see now eat that throughout the year. So that was their reason, and they automatically had gut friendly food in their kitchen all the time. Then they used to use natural products like Uptons and homemade hair cleansers. We are now just buying body wash and using it. So that also kills a lot of bacteria on our skin. Again, antibacterial stuff did not exist for them. Now we use everything antibacterial, be it toothpaste or something like Dettol's. I understand that sometimes they are needed, but we are overusing everything. Then they had, like, everything was slow processed because obviously they did not have pressure cookers and they did not have high speed blenders. So that's how we are preparing our food. So even if when we are consuming something raw, like hari chutney, which is a very healthy thing and it's a traditional thing, people have been eating that for years, but now we make it in a high speed blender, and you can notice, by the time you are done making the chutney, the jar has become really hot. And they used to make it on those stone plates and crush it by hand. And I had it the other day at one of the organic markets, and it was just so delicious, and nowhere close to, the chutney we make at home in the mixie. And there was no meat industry or dairy industry. So even if they were consuming milk, it was from their own cows that were treated very nicely as a family member. They were not injected with hormones. And so today the dairy we are getting is nowhere near close to the dairy they were using. And we are literally ill-treating the animals around us. And if you also look at the numbers of antibiotic use, majority, I think it was around 70 to 80% of antibiotics that are produced by the pharma company is given to the animal industry. So even if you think, oh, I have not taken any antibiotics in the last few years, I'm good. But if you're consuming milk or meat, then, you are indirectly consuming antibiotics. Another important point was they used to have natural births at home. And we have a lot of bacteria in a house, but as compared to now, when we are having births in the hospital, it's a sanitized environment. And, so there is less bacteria there. So when a child is born, he's at that very moment, he or she is now lacking in bacteria. And another reason is C-section births as well. I know some of these things are out of our control and we just have to do it. But these are the reasons that when it's not a natural birth, the child doesn't get all the bacteria that it should from its mother. So here is a long list of things that kills good bacteria. And so, like I said, we are made up of a lot of bacteria in our body, and it's not that we just keep killing and they just disappear. So basically, good bacteria dies and the number of bad bacteria keeps increasing. And whatever feeds bad bacteria is what is going to kill the good bacteria. So processed white sugars is the biggest enemy because almost everyone is having it, consuming it throughout the day. I've even seen people sprinkle powdered sugar on fruits when it's not sweet enough as per their liking. So then a lot of junk foods, which is full of preservatives, all processed foods. Then like I mentioned, antibiotics and some medicines, a lot of stress. So our lifestyle has just turned into a lifestyle that is feeding the bad bacteria, poor sleep cycle, sedentary lifestyle. So we have to exercise to keep the good bacteria going, excess caffeine or anything that's addictive. And honestly, like sugar is actually more addictive than caffeine. There's research on that. And people who are trying to quit alcohol or drugs, and when they go to these rehab centers, they actually start giving them sweets. So, when they look at a donut or a pastry, they don't feel like having their alcohol. And that's how they give up on one addiction, because they are hooked on now to another addiction of sugar. Again, smoking also, then sanitized environments and births in hospitals. Why I'm calling this is a vicious cycle is because, so if you had something sweet today and now you fed the bad bacteria in your gut, that's going to multiply. And when it's multiplying, it's going to make you want to give him its food. So when you had that sugar and you gave food to the bad bacteria, now you will continuously you'll crave for that kind of food. So you'll crave for more sugary or fried food. So that's why all the foods that we say are unhealthy for us are the ones we think are tasty, and we'd eaten it once, and now we just get into that vicious cycle and we just can't stop eating. So the benefits of our microbiome in the right proportion, where we have more good bacteria and less of bad bacteria. The major thing is that it's going to assist us in digestion, because we are these days not eating our natural food. The most natural food for humans is fruits. And after that, it's herbs and green leafy vegetables, and then other vegetables come. But by natural, I mean, things that were there even before agriculture came, and they were growing naturally without humans actually having to do anything. So those are the most natural foods that our body can digest. Anything apart from that, even grains, for example, are, man-made. So all of those kinds of foods are difficult for our bodies to digest, be it grains or even dairy or any animal product. But we eat it, and our body still has to do that work to digest and try and get some nutrients out of it. So if we have good amount of good bacteria, they process that food for us and make it very easy for the body to digest and assimilate, take out nutrients from it. It does regulate our metabolism as well and helps in detox of toxins. So all these reasons, it's the same reason behind it that, they process all the food. How it helps in detox of toxins is because the bacteria is actually very clever to figure out what is good for our body and what's not, and it will completely reject it and move it further to be excreted out from the body. Stronger immunity, like I explained, that there's a lot of immune cells in our gut, and the bacteria is clever to figure out what is good and what is bad and what do we need to attack. So it actually trains our immune system on how to go about this. And here is a list of problems that a poor gut can lead to. And so it starts with upset stomach. That's the most obvious one. And even things like gas and bloating, acidity, all these issues are related to poor gut health. Then, of course, if you have poor metabolism, then you can lose or gain weight. Then sleep disturbances, there's constant fatigue and skin irritation. Skin, again, is a very common problem, like acne and things like that, because if your gut is not functioning properly, your bodies tend to not digest your food properly, and then you have a lot of toxins that are trying to come out, and they will come out through the skin, and that's when we get a lot of skin issues. Autoimmune conditions, there's a whole long process about how that works, but to explain quickly, if the gut is not functioning properly, undigested food or toxins from our body can actually, because our intestines get damaged, and that toxin actually gets released into our bloodstream through the intestines. And now that's like a permanent thing. And if you don't know what exactly is going on, so your issue keeps coming back and your immune system is in a constant fight, and that's how it turns into an autoimmune problem. Then this also leads to food intolerances. So basically, if you have food intolerances, it could be because of just a gut issue. And initially you will have to avoid those foods, but if you fix your gut and then slowly reintroduce those foods, then that's possible that you might not be allergic to the same food anymore. Hormonal issues and anxiety, depressions are all I've mentioned. So if you see all the brain disorders like autism, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's, again, they've become a lot more common in the last 20 to 40 years. And if you notice that autism is common in kids and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's is common in people above the age of 60, that's when our guts are actually at their weakest. So basically the microbiome actually develops with age, and it's at its peak in the middle age, around when we are from 15 to 40, 50 years of age. And after that, it starts to decline again. So that's when these issues are becoming more and more common. And like I mentioned, now the births are happening in sanitized environment or C-section births. So that is why autism has also, that is probably why autism has become a lot more common. I mean, these are just recent studies, so there's no 100% there, but you can see a relation between these issues with the gut health. And antibiotic side effects is because if antibiotics literally wipe down bacteria in your body, they are given to kill the bad bacteria, but they will obviously kill any kind of bacteria that's there. So if you are someone who has a very healthy gut and took an antibiotic, you'll probably not see any side effects. But if you are a person already with a compromised gut and you take antibiotics, then you will actually see a lot more side effects. And a lot of times, even say, for example, in COVID also, everyone has different kinds of symptoms, and some barely were like almost asymptomatic, and some had a lot more. So it really depends on the health of your gut. So how can we fix our gut is literally, like I mentioned, all the things that we are doing today, which has ruined our gut health. So we really need to, stop doing, unlearn our lifestyle of the last 30 years where we were thinking we are cooler than our grandparents, but I don't think we were. And we should go back to what they used to do and do these things. So let's start with probiotics, which is fermented foods, which have bacteria in them. Because of course, we let it sit in the environment for some time. We also add some starter culture to it. So bacteria starts to grow and we can consume that food. So we consume that bacteria. It is very important to continuously do that, because just having it once is not going to solve the problem. Because our environment is as such now that there's no bacteria there, and we're using cleaning products and things like that every day. So we need to supply this bacteria to our bodies every day. And we need to feed that bacteria. And food for that bacteria is prebiotics. And prebiotics is literally any live food. And by live food, I mean, raw food. So all fruits and vegetables. And if you're not cooking it to very high temperatures, and if it's until it's lukewarm, that can be considered as raw. And so that's prebiotics, and that's a food for the bacteria. So both these things are very important, because if I keep eating fermented foods with my usual lifestyle and diet of all heavily cooked foods and fried foods, then the bacteria is not really going to get its food and it won't be able to thrive. Then we have to try and, include more organic foods that are free from preservatives, definitely to avoid antibiotics. And by that, I also mean antibiotics that are there in dairy and meat. We can play with mud and grow our own food, because there's a lot of bacteria in mud. And when you're growing your own food, it's a very nice feeling to, grow your own food, and it calms you, and you also get the bacteria from there. We could avoid sugars, caffeine, alcohol, and smoking. Drink your solids, chew your juices. So basically, I mentioned at the beginning that we are just gulping our food down because we're too busy. So we need to really start chewing our food, because for the healthy gut, yes, we need bacteria, but then overall we need a healthy digestive system. So when we chew food in our mouth slowly, ideally we should chew each bite for about 25 to 32 times. That depends on how hard or soft the food you were eating. So something that is very hard and chewy should be chewed at least 32 times in your mouth. So when we do that, some digestive juices are secreted in the mouth itself. And also the brain gets an idea that what kind of food we are eating, and it sends the signal to the gut, and the gut starts to prepare on, what's coming its way. And that's how a better digestion is done. And also if we just gulp big pieces, then our stomach is not able to break them into smaller pieces because our stomachs don't have teeth. So a lot of it just gets passed in the system, and we don't get any nutrients from that food. And why I say chew your juices is because juices are great, vegetable juices are great, fruit juices are also good, but not if we are just gulping them down. We should sip it very slowly, like ideally spend around 10 minutes to drink one big glass of juice. Sip it slowly, try and swirl it in your mouth for a few seconds. Same reason that all your juices are there in the mouth that mix with the food, and the brain sends the signal to your gut for what's coming for better digestion. Activating your dry foods is basically anything that's dry that can be just stored outside, is your grains and pulses and dry foods, dry fruits, nuts and seeds, everything which is dry. We have this habit sometimes, we are just walking around, you get hungry in the middle of the day, you take a handful of nuts and you just eat it. So all these dry foods have a lot of anti-nutrients in them, and basically they stop the absorption of nutrients when you consume them. So we must soak our food and sprout as many of those things as we can, like pulses you can sprout, nuts also can be sprouted to some extent. So but whether you sprout or not, but you should definitely soak them for, depends on the grain size, so you'll have to soak them for anywhere between 3 to 12 hours. And after that, if you can sprout, that's just great, and removes the anti-nutrients even more. And another important thing is food combining. So basically, like I said, that just the bacteria is not enough. We need to look at the overall health of the digestive system. So food combining is really important, because if we eat opposite groups of foods together in the same meal, then they all need different kinds of digestive juices for their digestion. So if you're eating all kinds of foods, then all different kinds of juices are there in our stomach, like the acidic and the basic. So they neutralize the effect of each other. And then again, that hampers the digestion of the food. So when we say, oh my God, I can't have fruits first thing in the morning, it gives me gas or acidity. I can't have rajma, it gives me acidity, or cauliflowers. Oh no, I can't have green juice. So basically there's nothing wrong with the food. This is our food, and it's something wrong with our gut. So if you're having any of these issues with certain foods, we have the answer that we need to fix our gut health. So I'm going to start with the food combining. So basically food can be divided into 4 major food groups: fruits, vegetables, protein, and starch. And I'll just go a little bit more on detail on what is protein and starch when I come to that part. So these are the 4 main food groups. And fruits themselves can be divided into these 4 categories of melons: acidic, subacidic, and sweet. So what I'm telling you today are the strictest rules. And ideally for these 7 days to at least 3 weeks, I would suggest that you should follow the strict rules very strictly. After that, you can, be a bit lenient once in a while. That's okay. But right now, when we're trying to fix and detox the gut completely, it's very important to, stick to these combining rules properly. And that's how the meal plan has also been designed. So I'll just mention that here also briefly, that you might feel one day that, this ingredient is not available, or can I swap, and things like that. So I would prefer that, we just stick to the entire plan as it is as much as possible. I know it's the lockdown and some things might not be available. And in case you really need to swap something, you can swap the entire day rather than a meal. So let's come back to the fruits. Melons. So melons are mostly water, and they take the least time in digestion. And that's why they should not be mixed with any other fruit. So all kinds of melons can be eaten with each other, or anyways, I'll suggest just have any one fruit at a time, so you don't have to think about it too much. But watermelon, or be it cantaloupe melon or any of the other melons, you can mix them, that's okay, but you don't mix them with any other fruit category. Then next is the acidic fruits. So their digestion time is about 1 to 1.5 hours, and all fruits like lemons and pomegranate and mosmi and all these are acidic fruits. So acidic fruits can be combined with subacidic fruits, which is the next category, because they are almost similar in their digestion time, and even the sort of digestive juices that are needed for their digestion are also similar. So you can mix acidic and subacidic fruits. And the fourth category is the sweet ones. And the sweet can be combined with the subacidic, but not with acidic or with melons. And one more thing I'd like to add on fruits is always have them on empty stomach. A lot of people have this habit of having a fruit as a dessert. So just as soon as they finish their meal, they want to have a fruit. So ideally, you could do that the other way around. So have your fruit first. Whenever you're having a fruit, either your empty stomach, that means your last meal was at least 3 to 4 hours before that time. And after it will exit your stomach in about 45 minutes. So after eating a fruit, you could keep a gap of 45 minutes to 1 hour, and then you can have your food. So the next groups are the protein, vegetable, and starch, where vegetables are the way they digest can actually combine well with protein as well as starch. So you could have a meal that has vegetables and starch, or you could have a protein that has vegetables and protein, but protein and starch don't go together. So I've given a list of things that are counted under protein. So you might feel that, oh, all the pulses have protein and it's not listed under protein. So the reason behind that is when we are cooking our pulses, the juices that are required for their digestion are more similar to the starch category. So you would still, of course, get that protein from pulses when you cook and eat them, but they don't come under the protein category. They come under starch category. So here's the list of all the meat product has protein. And then in vegetarian, we have the nuts and nut butters and nut milks, all the seeds and milk products. All of these would come under the protein category. And vegetables is literally all vegetables. Sometimes it is okay to mix citrus fruits like tomatoes. Okay, I don't know what that happened.
Priyanka, you can stop sharing the screen and reshare. I'll guide you on how to stop the annotations. So stop sharing the screen for now.
Okay, but I think it's gone now. Will I just continue?
Yeah, so what you can do is go to security and you'll see annotation and just uncheck that.
Okay.
Maybe if it comes up again, we can do
Then
that.
yeah. Okay, so where was I? Yes, so vegetables cannot be mixed with fruits, but sometimes it's okay to mix citrus fruits like tomatoes. So personally, when I am eating a salad, I avoid tomatoes, but there are times I also want to eat organic and seasonal. So there are times when I literally have not a lot of options to put in my salad. So in that case, I don't mind. I mix tomatoes in the salad. And also they sometimes make nice salad dressings as well. So it's okay to use it now and then. And then starch is all our rice and breads and rotis. And so all the cooked pulses are all starch. So with pulses and lentils and all, if you are just soaking them, cooking them and eating them, it's starch. But if you're sprouting them, then because now they've grown, so it's actually almost like a vegetable. So when you're having a salad and you're putting sprouts in your salad, you can treat them as a vegetable in terms of food combining, but you'll obviously get a lot of protein from them. So protein and starch is not a good combination. And I think if you closely look at these, you will think probably that, in every other meal we do that, we are mixing starch with protein in so many meals. So just be conscious, and it's possible, it just takes time. few weeks to get used to this. But after that, it'll just come to you naturally that, okay, I'm not supposed to eat this with this, but you can eat them individually. So it's just about being aware and, trying to keep that in mind while preparing your meals. Okay, so again, a lot of times people do face issues with the digestibility of raw foods. There are two reasons. One is that your gut might not be in the good shape, so it is not digesting those foods as it should. And another reason is that certain types of vegetables are not very friendly for our digestive system. So they are too hard or things. So, those vegetables can be slightly steamed, not overcooked. And, you can mix that in your salads. It's okay. So we'll start with fruits again, why people have problems with fruits in digestion. One reason is we are not eating organic fruits, and we are sometimes or a lot of the times eating unripe fruit, which was ripened artificially. So it looks ripe and you bring it home, and when you are eating it, it's not actually ripe. So that can cause a lot of indigestion. So try and be more careful and go to more trusted vendors for your fruits and get ripe fruit. Also, some fruits like bananas, they will ripe eventually. So you just need to wait and just keep it. And mangoes and bananas, things like that, they will ripe. And so just eat when they are fully ripe. And a lot of the fruits, you can just smell them and you'll know whether it's ripe or not. When to eat, I've mentioned, have it on empty stomach and combine it properly. Otherwise, you will have digestion problems. If you're having a fruit juice, then ideally I would suggest to eat the whole fruit and not juice it. But if you still feel like having a fruit juice for a change, then you should dilute it, because fruits are very high in sugars, even if it's natural sugar and it's going to do no harm in the body. But having it as a juice, that means you've just concentrated all that sugar in one small glass. So dilute it with at least half the quantity of water. So, half a glass of juice and half a glass of water, and sip it slowly. All the root vegetables, they are quite hard and they are difficult for our body to digest. So I don't really recommend having big chunky pieces of beetroots and carrots in your salad and just, chew them. And especially if you're not chewing it properly, then you will actually have those bits going directly into your intestines. So to have root vegetables, one thing is you could juice them. And you can actually include that juice in a salad dressing. So blend it with some nuts, and it will make a very nice, interesting salad dressing also. So you can do that, or you can have it as a juice. You can slightly steam them, or you can ferment them. So now you can make a lot of pickles with root vegetables that are totally oil free, and you need to add just a little bit of salt, and they actually make a very good companion to your salads. Then, of course, chewing your food. I explained that earlier, how chewing actually helps in the digestion. So if you are going to chew your food till it actually becomes almost a liquid, so when you actually chew it 32 times, you will notice that it's turned into almost liquid. That's when you're supposed to swallow it. Using things like choppers and food processors and blenders with these hard vegetables, it helps, because when you grate a vegetable, it is already made much smaller, like as compared to biting into a big piece of beetroot and or having a spoonful of grated beetroot. You'll know a huge difference. So you can grate them and add in your salads. Marination really helps. So whatever salad you're making, and if you make a salad dressing, put it and leave it for at least 20 minutes to half an hour, it will leaves some water. Some people don't like to eat it that way, but it is a much healthier way to have your salad. Then of course, green juice, green vegetable juices are great. And if you start your day with a green juice, whether you might in the beginning feel uncomfortable and might get that gas or acidity. But if you do that for a few days, the body will adopt to it. And after that, you will notice wonderful changes. Then, of course, sprouting is a great way to improve digestibility. You can have raw sprouts, but if you're having raw sprouts, again, they do have very hard fiber in them. And but if you're just having, say, 2-3 spoons of it, or a half cup of sprouts mixed in your salad, that's perfectly fine. if you want to have them in a larger quantity, so then you can steam them and have them, or even add them in your green juice. Microgreens are great. A lot of people have started growing them at home now, so you can grow and you can put them in your juices, you can put them in your salads, you can sprinkle it on cooked food as well. And even wheatgrass juice, homemade fresh wheatgrass juice is great. Fermentation, oh, I already just covered it. So yeah, that's about it. And we can open up for questions now.
Thanks, Priyanka. So can I read out the questions from you from the chat, and maybe you can read them up one by one. So first question is from Shraddha Jain. Isn't time the biggest constraint for a lifestyle that we are all adapting or adapted to? Making fresh food is certainly still a priority, but are there foods that can be stored for, say, students or working family?
See, ideally, I mean, and if you believe in Ayurveda also a little bit, you should not eat food that is stale, and but you can definitely prepare everything first thing in the morning for your entire day and keep that for the day. Even green juices, so you can make it in the morning and keep it in an airtight container in your refrigerator, and have it again in the evening if you want. But I wouldn't recommend doing that for the next day. Things like salad dressings, that you can definitely, because you are just using as to improve the taste of the salad, and so you can prepare salad dressing one day, enough for 3 to 4 days, because they will stay fresh for that long in the fridge. So you can make a big bowl of salad dressing and have that for and so the next 3 days you just have to chop up your salads, and you have the dressing ready. You just mix it and have it, so that it won't take more than 10 minutes to make a big nice salad for lunch. And time is not the biggest, our mind is the biggest constraint. So if we tell ourselves we can do it, I don't expect anybody to start doing everything on day one, but you start with any one habit at a time. And in the beginning it feels like a lot, but when you change one habit and you do it for 2 weeks, you will actually feel, okay, that was a very simple thing to do, I can do that. And when you feel that way, that's when you add another change. So if you starting with, okay, from now I'm going to have a green juice every morning, you make that a habit. After 3 weeks you say, okay, now I have to have a big salad lunch every day, and you can prepare those dressings in advance. For cooked portion, you could prepare your, say, for example, you want to have dal chawal, so you make that in the morning, and big enough meal, so you can have a big salad for lunch and the dal chawal, a little bit of that, but in your dinner you can have the entire dinner as dal chawal. So there wasn't a lot of cooking that had to be done.
The next question is from Mansi. How is food supposed to be cooked?
Well, food is supposed to be cooked first as less as possible. So steaming is the best option, and cooking without oil is better, because most of the oils, and especially if we're talking about the regular oils in the market, are they've been processed so much so that they can have a long shelf life in the supermarket. So when you cook food in that and you heat it again, because it's gone through a lot of processes. So now when you heat it again, it releases a lot of toxins. And I'm sure everyone's noticed this black layer in their kitchen fans and exhaust fans, so that's coming from your cooking. So if it's settling on your fan, it's settling inside your body also. So the one thing is to definitely avoid oil in cooking, and we'll be sharing videos on how to do oil-free cooking and still make it tasty. A lot of the times when I make food, people can't tell that it was done without oil tadka. So that's one. The other is steaming, that the lower the temperature and the lower the duration of your food, the better it is. So that you are not killing all those nutrients and prana in your food. And another thing is, of course, your utensils that you're using, the cookware that you're using. So aluminum is like the biggest no. In terms of practical and easy to maintain, easy to use, quick to use, stainless steel is the best option. But ideal is cast iron or clay pots and soapstone cookware, because whatever you are using to cook your food in, it will leach out something from it in your food. So plastic and aluminum actually really leach out a lot of toxins into the food when you're cooking it. Glass is good, and stainless steel as compared to all other metals would leach out the least. So, but it's the most practical option. Clay and stone is actually not as bad as people think, but yeah, for beginners, it might feel overwhelming. But I will briefly talk about that also, how to use these in the next session.
Sushma says, is it good to soak dry fruits like almonds and walnuts at night and eat the next morning?
Yeah, so the ones that are big in size, like almonds and walnuts, you can soak them overnight because 8 to 10 hours, it's fine. Certain things, especially cashews and the smaller ones in size, would probably not need that long soaking time. But if you still feel that, you know, in the morning you won't have time, you'll forget about it, then you can soak it and put it in the fridge. So the smaller ones can be soaked in the fridge, and the bigger size ones are okay outside overnight.
So I think the next question also gets covered in that. The question is how to consume peanuts and cashews. Same thing, is it?
Yeah, so basically soaking is one option, that you must soak it, and even lightly roasting the nuts will also reduce the anti-nutrients. So, but of course that would also kill the nutrients. So the first best option is soaking and consuming. Second best is that you can lightly roast it, and you know, maybe in case you need it for something and you don't have now time to soak, so you can lightly roast the nuts as well. And
Ja-
best way to have peanut is actually to turn it into a peanut curd. And because now you've soaked it and you've fermented it also, and so basically you can turn, now the peanut curd can be had as a chas or make kadhi. And in fact, I just posted yesterday on my Instagram a peanut kadhi I had last night, and it was delicious. So um, just think in terms of what all you can sprout and what all you can ferment. So if you can, uh, again, it seems like a lot of very time consuming. If I now tell you the process of how to sprout and ferment or whatever, you'll feel like, oh my God, that's a lot of work. But when you actually do it, you can watch recipe videos on YouTube. There's so many of them. And when you see it, someone do it, it just feels like it's doable, and you just need to get the hang of it. So pick a day when you're free to experiment. But first time I made yogurt, I actually thought, oh my God, like dairy yogurt was so much easier to make. This is a task. But once I made yogurt 3-4 times, now it's literally like, you know, it's no work, I feel, you know. So yeah.
Question from Jasmine. Is it okay to have fruits in the evening before dinner and after dinner?
So basically, you can have fruits any time of the day. The only thing you need to make sure is that you're having on empty stomach. So ideally, after dinner will not give you that much time, right? Unless you want to have a heavy meal at say 5 p.m. and you want to have a fruit at 9 o'clock, that's totally fine. Or you can have a big fruits smoothie bowl for dinner sometimes. You know, that's great. It's a good change in summers. I love to do that.
Anitra says, so if I have fruit for breakfast, then 1 hour later, can I have a vegetable juice or start with a vegetable juice and then have fruits?
You can do both. So you can start your day with the fruit, and then at least 45 minutes or 1 hour later, you can have your juice. And if you're having juice first, then juice would only need 15 to 20 minutes. So anytime after 20 minutes of having the green juice, you can have fruit.
Sheila says, should we dilute vegetable juices as well?
There is no need, but you can. And it really depends on your taste buds also. Sometimes people might find the green juices too strong. So if diluting helps, then you can do that. And it just makes it lighter actually, you know. So especially people who have any sort of gut issues. So when they have a diluted juice, it'll be easier for the body to digest. But if you've already been eating a lot of raw foods, then you can definitely have a juice without diluting.
Question from Hiral, is it okay to cook sprouts?
It's okay. So we can do a comparison. See, the raw sprouts would be the healthiest form of pulses you can have. They do have 40 times more nutrition as compared to the unsprouted pulses. And you don't need a lot of them anyway. So you can have a handful of raw sprouts either in your juice or mix it in the salad and eat it. That's fine. But sometimes you just want to have a bigger meal, more protein, maybe after workout, you feel like having a bigger portion of sprouts, then you can slightly steam them because a big portion of sprouts have a lot of fiber and you should not consume that much sprouts raw. Also, and if you compare it to, say, for example, in your lunch, you had 2 spoons of raw sprouts, that's fine. But if you want to have it as a cooked meal in the dinner, and if you compare with the regular dal chawal or a sprout sabzi and chawal, then the sprout sabzi is any day far more healthier than your cooked dal. So in that ways, so you can compare what are you eating it for and you can decide.
Taruna says, I make juice with beetroot, cucumber, carrot, ginger, radish, and orange. Is this digestible combination or not?
Second best, I'll say. So if you just remove the orange from there, which is a fruit, that's a good juice to have. But once in a while, or for kids to make it more palatable, if you mix orange because it's a citrus fruit, it's okay. But I would recommend not to mix the orange.
Shreya Bhatia says, fruits is more beneficial if we take them in the morning.
It's nothing like that. You can have them any time of the day.
Divya says, if the vegetables are not organic, then is it safe to juice them?
So basically, it doesn't matter whether you are having the inorganic food raw or cooked, because even cooking will not really kill the toxins in that. You are just cooking it, so you denature them, so their chemical composition will change, but they'll still be there. And eventually, our body just has to deal with it. So whether you are having inorganic raw or inorganic cooked, it doesn't really matter. Those toxins will go in the body, and the body has to either body will be able to throw them out, or otherwise they'll just accumulate in the body.
Lakshmi says, chicken curry with rice is the wrong option then.
Yes.
Neeta says, how can someone with Crohn's or ulcerative colitis have raw foods?
So basically, in those conditions when raw foods don't suit you, you have to skip them, of course, because you don't want to further irritate your internals. You start with a lot of steamed food. That's the next best you have. So you have everything steamed. You can try with so maybe have like say 1 week of steamed foods, and after that have a vegetable juice which is diluted in water. So maybe 1/4 of the glass is vegetable juice and the rest is water, and you drink that and you see how if you're not feeling irritated with it, then you continue with that and you slowly build up the juice amount, so taking half a glass of juice and half a glass of water, and do it for a few months. And when you start to feel better, then you can experiment with eating softer raw foods. So for example, like a beetroot again, or a carrot or radish, they're all very hard, so don't try with those. Start with tomatoes and fruits that are very soft on the system. So slowly, after like 3-4 months, you can start introducing these. So
Okay.
like a very rigorous plan similar to the meal plan, but of course not raw. You can steam everything instead. If you follow that for a few months, you will definitely see the difference in your health, and then you can start introducing raw foods.
All right, so we'll just take up the remaining questions now, and I'll be disabling the chat. And because we've reached, the end of the session, and we'll just take up the remaining questions. Um, Neha says, if milk and meat can be sourced from a non-hormonal way, then is that okay?
See, I don't promote the consumption of any animal products, and there are more than one reasons for that. Um, and well, even if you say it's the most ethical way you got it, firstly, I don't think there is any ethical way to get any kind of animal products, because no species, whether it's a cow or a human, would give their milk to another species. So I don't think anybody is getting a cow's milk with her permission. So, and another reason is that when we are doing that, the animal has a lot of emotions, right? I don't think the cow is feeling very good about it when you're taking the milk. And honestly speaking, they don't even let you do that easily, right? You have to familiarize with them, and eventually I think they give up. They don't have an option, so we milk them. But the point is that whenever we are either killing an animal for their meat or we are getting milk from them, they definitely don't have any nice feelings at that instant. Either they're scared or they're frustrated or they are hating you or they are angry. It's all negative emotions. And those emotions actually stay in that food. So now that animal has turned into meat or milk or paneer, those emotions are there. Things actually, the structure of the food changes. It's stored, it's there as a memory. And when we consume that, our gut can definitely read that. And like I said, the gut and brain have two-way communication. So now they've received these negative emotions, and that's what you will show in yourself as well. So you might get angry or frustrated because of that chicken you ate was angry or frustrated and sad. So those are the feelings you will have. And like, that's why I mentioned that, I feel I am a different person since I turned vegan.
Question from Archana Rao. As consuming fruits increases sugar levels, can we include some soaked nuts along with the fruits, soaked nuts and seeds?
Again, ideally not. So like I said, there's the most ideal food combination which I talked about today. So that says fruits to be eaten on their own. So you should not mix them with nuts. Then there is a second best scenario, because of course, if you are eating organic and seasonal and you want to have variety, and if you want to have something different on the weekend, or you want to make something more fun for the kids, so sometimes it's okay, but make sure that you soaked the nuts, not without soaking. So you soak them for a few hours and then you want to blend cashew and banana to make a nice smoothie. Once in a while it's okay, but not on a daily basis.
Lakshmi says, should water also be sipped? As mostly we drink more, we tend to gulp. Is that wrong?
Yeah, I mean, it's not as the same thing as food, because food is more complex and we need to, let the digestive juices come out. But still, water should also be sipped slowly.
Question from Sunita Madan. You say organic food, but it said even the water is filled with chemicals. So it's next to impossible to have organic food. What will you suggest for this? I'm already following a whole foods plant-based diet.
So just, I think you've disabled the chat, but I wanted a clarification. I'll anyways take both assumptions. So if you're talking about the water that is being used to grow the food, then I mean, there is obviously nothing that we can do. And that's why we need to change at a very big scale, that, everyone eventually slowly starts eating organic food and stops or reduces the use of chemicals in our life. So our water bodies get clean. That's the only way out, which is years and years away. But we have to start somewhere, right? So, and the thing is, our bodies have gotten used to it. So like I said, even if you're eating the inorganic food and which is full of preservatives and chemicals, my body or your body doesn't have an option. It has to process that. And um, again, two things can happen: either the body will push it out and we are done, it's gone out of the body, but if it doesn't, it's accumulated as toxins. And that's why we are doing this program, where the diet and lifestyle changes that are suggested here, they will actually force those toxins to come out. And honestly, like, yes, we think detox we can do once in a while and go back to our usual, but we need to make certain things as a daily or a weekly habit for the rest of our life, because we are taking in toxins every day, and there is no way that we can stop that completely, because the air is polluted, the water is polluted. So that's why we have to do certain things on a daily basis.
I think next question has been addressed about soaking nuts. We've already covered that. Hinal says, I love curd, but have been asked by my dermat to avoid dairy due to acne. Is there
Right.
any substitute for curd?
Yes, we will be doing a recipe of almond yogurt in the next session. And so that's one of the options, but otherwise there are a lot of dairy curds as well. And the recipe that I'm sharing is actually a little more complicated. So if you understand that and you make that, there are a lot of other easier plant-based yogurt recipes. So if you can do this one, you can do any yogurt recipe. Yeah.
Shilpa says, should we not have yogurt with rice in lunch?
Again, so if it's dairy, I generally don't recommend that. But if it's plant-based yogurt, now the thing is that whenever we are eating a fermented food, it's already pre-digested. So because the bacteria has grown, and that's how even in the gut happens, right? That when we eat a complex food, the bacteria processes it and makes it simpler. So when we're eating a fermented food like yogurt, that is the bacteria has already made it into simpler particles, and we don't need to worry about the food combining rules on fermented stuff.
Neha says, how about curd as a probiotic?
Yes, it's definitely a probiotic. Curd is a probiotic.
Jasmine says, I put celery, cucumber, amla, curry leaves in my green juice. Is that a right combination? I had hair loss after COVID and I want to improve my hair density. Is there anything you can suggest?
So again, the meal plan that we've shared, if you can continue that, see, hair loss is not something you can fix in a few weeks. It will take months. So you will have to be committed and follow this meal plan. Right now, the one we are doing is more rigorous. I would suggest everyone to do it for exactly like this for 3 weeks at least. And after that, I will, on the last day, I will give you options on to making it a little more easy, but still, certain things, how to keep staying with them for the rest of your life. And you will, any of your health issues, you will see a difference. So even hair loss, you can recover your lost hair. Definitely comes back.
Sushma says curd should be had in the day only and not after sunset. What are your views?
Well, ideally, nothing should be had after sunset. Basically, our bodies work with the sun cycle, and so that's how the digestive fire is. It's a little low in the morning and evenings, and it's at its peak in the afternoon. But if it comes to fermented foods, which is a curd, it's actually, because it's pre-digested, it's the least burden on your system. So again, I'd say you can have it anytime.
Shilpa says, is grated mixed salad better than chopped salad? Should we eat salad before lunch or with lunch?
So raw foods should be eaten before, and chopping, grating, both are fine. It's just that certain things, like I mentioned, hard vegetables like radish or carrots or beetroots, those, if you're eating as big chunks and not able to chew them a lot and eat, then that can cause a bit of a problem and they won't get digested properly. So with that, it's better you could grate them. And otherwise, it's always good to use different techniques, because if you want to have a salad every day, you will get bored of it. So one day you can chop, one day you can grate, one day you can make noodles out of it. So that helps.
Question from Nitasha, if we cook food without oil, how will the fat soluble vitamins be absorbed?
So we do include healthier fats in our diet. So it's just that those oils are not the best way to consume them, and we use a lot of nuts and coconut in the recipes.
Okay, so next,
And there's one more thing in this meal plan. I have not included any oils, but after 2-3 weeks, it's okay to pour some oil on top of your dal if you feel like, but only cold pressed organic oils. But I would anyway, any day suggest that skip oils totally and include more nuts and coconuts and avocados in your diet.
so Manpreet says she wants to understand more on correct combinations. So we have a few sessions to go on, Manpreet, and hopefully you will understand more about this as we go ahead. Uh,
We can
okay,
probably cover a bit more on in the next session.
sure. Next question. Also, one big query, we buy vegetables and fruits, keep it in the fridge. Then, what about the freshness of fruits and vegetables? Although nowadays I have started buying less quantity. Uh, But then the question of consuming with peel, she's feeling hesitant. So what would you recommend for that?
See, again, ideal is obviously not using the refrigerator and buying fresh and eating, but again, it's not practical. Sometimes we do need to buy in bulk and we refrigerate it. Um, Take it out before consuming, at least half an hour, 1 hour before, or before cooking. And I didn't get the second part of the question. Hesitant about what? About the peels? You said something.
Yeah, so consuming with the peel.
Again, if you're talking about organic and inorganic, it doesn't matter because there's going to be pesticides everywhere, whether on the skin or inside. So even if you take the skin off, the pesticides are still there. At least in the skin, there is fiber. And but having said that, not all peels are digestible by our body. So the hard peels, any vegetable with hard peels, you can peel them, and the ones that are tender and soft and that you actually enjoy eating. Our bodies are very intelligent, so just listen to your body. There will be certain fruits, when you eat them you don't mind the skin, so that means you are meant to eat that skin. But there are certain ones that you just can't. Even for example, apple, sometimes when I eat it, it's really nice and I don't mind the skin, but there are times when I bite into it and the skin is just feels really hard and fibrous, so you can just take it off. But it's not got anything to do with being organic or not, or buying fresh or not.
So there are a couple of questions which are very specific to diet related questions, and I think in the next session you will be covering more of that, right? The meal plan
Yeah,
and all of
yeah.
that. So I would request everyone to keep your questions, hold on to them. Maybe in the next session you can get all of them clarified. Um, I'll just see if there's anything that can be taken up now. Maybe one last question that we can go with. Um, so there's one question. What falls under over fermented foods?
Alcohol. So basically, when we make yogurt and it's ready the next day and you taste it, it has a very slight sour taste. But if you keep letting it, so the moment you taste that sourness, it's just the beginning and a very subtle sour. That's when it's fermented. But if you let it ferment further, and even when you refrigerate the yogurt, after 2 days or 3 days, you'll notice now it's becoming really sour. So that is now getting over fermented. So our taste buds and our even the smell, we can just tell. Sometimes it'll smell bad if your ferment has gone bad. Even say you were making a sauerkraut or any ferment that you're making, and it takes 10 days to make, but only on the third day sometimes you will just have a foul smell. That means it's gone bad. So you need to get rid of it. And if it's tasting too sour that you can't actually eat it, that means it's over fermented.
All right. So I think we've overshot the time a little bit. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And thank you so much, Priyanka, for taking us through so much of valuable information. And I hope that this has triggered lot of interest in people. And we look forward to your next live, which is on 24th. It's
Just
going
a
to
quick
be,
note for the
yeah.
next session. We've shared the meal plan and we'll shortly also share the recipe book. I would suggest that you go through it and just see the ingredients. It'll be good that you have most of them ready so that you can actually start with the meal plan while we have the WhatsApp support, and be really great that you're making something, you have a question you can ask, and it will be motivating for others to see as well that people are actually following the meal plan and going about it. So just take a look at it tonight and try and, start getting all the ingredients we'll be needing. Most of it is very usual stuff that I'm sure most of you have anyway, but still it's better to take a look.
Okay. All right, so I think we are good to conclude for the day. Thanks everyone for being with us. We will see you again on 24th, same time, 5 to 6. Take care. Bye. And recording will be available to you. So in case you've missed anything, uh, we'll update you regarding the recording and where you can access it on the WhatsApp group that you all are a part of. Thanks everyone. Have a good evening. Take care. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.